Okay, so let's do this next example. When I come to bx squared plus 8x equals negative 15, remember it has to be set equal to 0 before I can solve. So you need to add this 15 over to the other side of the equal sign. And there's no like term, so you're just going to rewrite it as x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. And once it's set equal to 0, then you can go ahead and factor it. So again, this only has the number 1 in front of x squared, so I need two numbers that multiply to be 15 and add to be 8, and that would be a positive 5 and a positive 3. Now, the only way these two can multiply to be 0 is if either x plus 5 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. So we're going to solve both of those. For this one, to get x by itself, you're going to subtract 5 from both sides. And you can write that or just basically change the sign when you flip it over. And on the other side, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And so you're going to have x equals negative 5 and x equals negative 3. And we found the two solutions. Okay, for C it says a diver jumps from a diving board 24 feet above a pool. After t seconds, the diver's height, h above the water in feet, is given by this expression. In how many seconds will the diver hit the water? So you have to think, here's our diver, and he's going to go down and hit the water. And so what is his height when he hits the water? Up here it's 24 feet, and by the time he hits his water, his height is 0. So I'm just going to plug in, here's my formula, and I want to know when is this equal to 0? When is the height 0? So this is what we're solving. And t stands for time in seconds, so after t seconds. So the first thing you want to do, remember when we're factoring a t squared, is I want to get the negative out, and then the GCF of 16, 8, and 24 is 16. So we're going to factor out a negative 8. And you want to get rid of the negative because it'll make factoring easier. So we're going to divide each term by negative 8. So negative 16t squared divided by negative 8 is 2t squared. 8t divided by negative 8 is negative 1t. And 24 divided by negative 8 is negative 3. Okay, so what's different here is this first time we've had this GCF out in front with an equal sign. Now there's no variable here, so this is the only reason I can do this. I can't divide by a variable, but I can divide just by a number. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 8. And the reason this is nice is this just becomes 1, so this goes away. And I have 2t squared minus t minus 3 equals 0 divided by anything is 0. So basically that negative 8 cancels out and is gone. Now I'm going to factor. And this is trial and error, so I'm going to put my 2t and my t for my first terms. So this is a little bit easier because both my first and my last terms are prime. And I'm going to try a negative 3 and a positive 1 for what multiplies to be a negative 3. And now let's just check. My outside terms multiply to be 2t, my inside terms multiply to be negative 3t, and that does add to be a negative 1t. So we have factored this correctly. Okay, so these two are set equal to 0. So the way I solve now is I set both of these factors equal to 0, and I'm going to solve for t. So in the first one, we're going to add 3 to both sides first. And we're going to get 2t equals 3. That's a 2. Divide by 2. And we get, whoops, blue. And we get t equals 3/2. Since this is seconds, I'm going to write this as 1, instead of 3/2, I'm going to write it as 1.5 seconds. Now over here, when I subtract 1 from both sides, I get t equals negative 1. And we don't ever talk about negative seconds. I never say I'm negative 1 second away. So that's not a solution to this real life example. So the solution is only the 1.5 seconds. So it takes 1.5 seconds to hit the water.